Hello children, in this class we are going to study Thomas Mann's Death in Venice, and this Death in Venice is a novella. So you must know the difference between a novel and a novella. So novella is shorter than a novel and longer than a short story. So this is neither a short story nor a novel. So this is a novella. Thomas Mann's Death in Venice is a novella. So let us start with Thomas Mann. So I'm sharing here the pic of Thomas Mann. Another pic. So this is Death in Venice textbook. So Death in Venice, it was published in the year 1912. So as I said, it's a novella. So Thomas Mann, he is a German novelist and essayist. His early novels are Buddenbrooks and Death in Venice, which earned him the Nobel Prize. So Thomas Mann is one of the most important, he was one of the most important figures of the 20th century. And as I said, he was a winner of Nobel Prize. And he was influenced by philosophers like, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche. So his fiction is characterized by subtle philosophical examination of the ideas, of their ideas, so Schopenhauer, Nietzsche's ideas. So Mann is one of the best known exponents of the so-called exile literature. So if you're wondering what is this exile literature, that is literature written in German by those who opposed or fled the Hitler regime. So Thomas Mann is one of the last notable authors of German modernism, but one of the first to herald the shattered aesthetic German literature after the horrors of World War II. So Mann's writings fall broadly into two categories: those written in psychological modern prose that searches for meaning. So World War II evoked Mann's patriotism and the artist's social commitment. So his practical involvement in social and political catastrophes made his work rich and varied. So the theme of the conflict between art and life appeared throughout his works. So the title of the novella refers to the setting. So Death in Venice is a semi-autobiographical work. See, recalling Death in Venice, one of Mann's most well-known works, and upon rereading his private journal entries, many critics have identified that there are real-life connections among the fictitious Polish boy Tadzio. So Tadzio is a character used in the novel, a 14-year-old boy. Many critics, they have identified that there are real-life connections among the fictitious Polish boy Tadzio and a real boy whom Thomas have really encountered upon his family vacation in Venice. So that's why it is a semi-autobiographical work. So after his death, Mann's diaries have revealed the author's personal struggles referring homosexuality, which have inevitably reflected in his prominent work, this particular work, Death in Venice. Death in Venice is not only representative of some of the issues treated in Mann's personal body of work, this novel also reflects many of the most vital ideas discussed in literature during the time of its composition. So at the turn of the century, if you see, many European writers expressed a biting awareness of cultural and personal decadence and social and moral decline was a central theme in many novels. So literature of the era also focused to a large extent on issues of homoeroticism, like this particular novel, Death in Venice. And Dorian Gray uses a fictional character to serve as a mask for its own homosexual author. Andrea Guy's novel, The Immortalist, represents the extreme identity crises experienced by many European homosexual artists of the time. So apart from the larger themes at work in the novella, Death in Venice, this was largely inspired by actual events in the life of its author. So Thomas Mann had been on an island near Venice where he happened to meet a boy named Tadzio. So let us begin from the title of the novel first. So title of the novel, as you all know, is Death in Venice. So the word death in the title signifies the decadence or decline of moral, cultural or social values. So that is what the title signifies. So it connotates something negative in the beginning of the novel itself. So the title Death in Venice, signifies that something ill or bad is going to happen. So, for your knowledge, the story takes place in the city of Venice. Okay, the background of the story is actually the city of Venice. And you all know Venice is a city that is famous for its sensuous symbolism. It is also a city that is well known to be decaying and dying year by year. So this Death in Venice, which was published in the year 1912, that is, it was during the time when the First World War I broke out. Life was a burden to Mann, Thomas Mann, and only writing was a therapy to him. So the narrator narrates the story from a third person. So the third person is the character, the protagonist of this novel is Aschenbach. Aschenbach. So Aschenbach is projected as a dignified, objective, and aesthetic man. So Death in Venice is one of the best examples of the irony and self-parody, which are the stylistic trademark of Thomas Mann. So this novella should be read as a satire on artistic pretensions. They follow of a great and lonely man. That is the theme or the story of this novella. So reason for Aschenbach's downfall, that is what we are going to study. What happens in his life and what are the reasons for his downfall. His inability to keep his sensuality repressed. Okay, that is the main reason, and we are going to study that in this novel. It is from Freudian perspective, a struggle between id and the superego. This connection can be made with Aschenbach. Aschenbach's disciplined, ascetic side and his lustful, reckless one. So this also we can study in the novel. Okay, now we will go into the novel. The protagonist of this novella is Gustav von Aschenbach. Okay, Gustav von von Aschenbach is the protagonist of the novella. He is an aging German writer who is self-disciplined, determinedly cerebral and duty-bound. So Aschenbach is said to have had a very disciplined, structured and passion-free life. Since boyhood, he had been pressured from all sides to achieve the extraordinary and thus had never known the leisure or a carefree idleness of youth. He suffers from a writer's block and he decides that a short vacation or a trip might improve his productivity. So he chooses Venice and he decides to travel Venice. So when Aschenbach has the urge to travel, he tells himself that he might find artistic inspiration from a change of scene. Okay, so he decides to change his place. He decides to travel to some other place, and he decides and he fixes the place. He fixes Venice as the place to clear his mind. So after deciding the place, he makes all arrangement to visit Venice. And one morning, after completing his writing, suddenly he goes on a walk to clear his mind. So suddenly a strong breeze begins to brew, and he decides to turn homeward, where he notices a strange-looking man with red hair, dressed as a tourist. So the man has a face that displays his long white teeth and gums, and Aschenbach realizes that the man is staring back at him aggressively. So though the meeting comes to nothing, the encounter stirs in Aschenbach a sudden desire to travel to foreign lands. So this meeting is very important in the novel. The first meeting with a strange looking man with red hair. So as I said, though the encounter, though the meeting has no relevance or importance, but it has stirred in Aschenbach a sudden desire to travel to some foreign land. Aschenbach starts his journey approximately 2 weeks after meeting that strange red-haired man. So he first travels to an island called Adriatic Island, but finds that it's rainy climate there, and the provincial flavor will not satisfy his longing. So after deciding, he decides to leave that place. So after deciding, he boards a boat that will take him to the city Venice. So on the boat, he saw a shabby hunchbacked seaman. It is a man with a goatee and the mannerisms of a circus director. Aschenbach watches a group of noisily laughing and joking young men on the boat. And upon closer examination of one of the more conspicuous of the group, Aschenbach realizes that one particular man is in fact quite old and wrinkled, and his rosy cheeks are painted. Even his hair is a wig, and his mustache dyed, and even he could identify that his teeth false. And Aschenbach wonders why people try hard to conceal their age by putting dye and makeup. He was irritated by the behavior of that stranger, and he reaches his hotel. Although in previous trips to the city of Venice, he has always been greeted by the sun, but this time he finds the sky over Venice to be heavy with clouds, and this signifies that something bad is going to happen. So this weather makes it appear to Aschenbach a different Venice than before. And Aschenbach disembarked the boat and he stepped into a gondola. So this is a gondola. I believe you are familiar, you have seen in your place. This is gondola in Venice. So Aschenbach, after he disembarked the boat and he stepped into a gondola, which will take him to the next part of his journey. That is, the boat which he stepped in, that was black in color, similar to a coffin, and this is linked with death. So in the beginning itself, everything is connected to death. Even the boat which he stepped in was black in color, and the description that is given by the author or by the writer is, it is similar to a coffin. This is how he compares. So the boat was compared to a coffin, which was linked with death, the last journey. So all these are signs or symbols that tells the reader that something bad is going to happen. So the story's location is Venice. Venice is highly significant. This place or the background is itself is highly significant. Italy represents the sensuous south, which contrasts to Aschenbach's austin native Germany. So as I said, he is a German writer. So it is a contrast to Aschenbach's native Germany. So Aschenbach's physical journey from one culture to the other and from one climate to the other actually parallels this internal descent from cool control to fiery passion. So in particular, the city of Venice can be seen as a symbol for Aschenbach himself. So Venice is unique for its daring construction. It is a city built in the middle of a lagoon, built and maintained by sheer will over the forces of nature. So similarly, Aschenbach considers true art to be the victory of the will over physical needs and natural impulses. And he considers himself to have accomplished such victories. Yet it is also well known that despite its mask of glory, Venice is gradually sinking, that is literally rotting from within. Again, the same might be said of Aschenbach. So all these elements are signs which hints that the famous celebrated writer Aschenbach is going to face some danger. So remaining, we'll see in next class.